thanks for checking out another episode of the Jobology podcast. I'm your host, Brandon, and today my guest is a friend of mine that works in marketing. Her name is Heather, and she's going to tell us all about B2B and B2C, and she's going to explain the difference between working with the public sector and the private sector. So, without further ado, Heather. Thank you for being with me today, Heather.
Yeah, thank you. I have been in B2B and B2C. Right now, I am with Net Documents.
Okay, that's the company.
Yes.
Okay.
And it's solely B2B. And Net Documents has been known to be focused on law firms and law departments.
Okay.
My sector actually is relatively new. We're actually focused on public sector.
Nice. I actually have a kind of like public sector specific question, maybe that we can get to a little bit down the line, and we'll see if it plays. I hope that I came up with a good enough question, but we'll see. First kind of way we like to get started, and we kind of mentioned a little bit on job title and like what company you're working for, but kind of the way we always like to get started is we like to inform the viewer exactly what it is that we're going to be talking about. So my first question would be, how, if just the average person was coming up to you and say, hey, what do you do for work, versus like what the job title on your business card would be, how do you answer that question?
I'm in marketing.
Okay. Marketing. And then specifically, like, is there a job title that you would have that if, somebody wanted to look up more on that specific job or find exactly what you do, they would search?
I've been known to be a jack of all trades.
Nice.
I've I've been for the last 6 years been marketing contracting consultant. So I've been really advising a lot of companies,
Yeah.
advising them on their PPC, SEO, marketing strategy, what they need to be doing, what they need to be focusing on. A lot of times just taking on different on and in jobs within their marketing.
Oh, is this something you went to school for, or you just like got into because you were like, oh, I think I'll be good at this, or somebody said you'd be good at it, or like, how did you kind of get involved in marketing in the first place?
I majored in communications,
Okay.
and I didn't really know what I wanted to do with that. And my sister was my biggest influencer.
Nice.
She was in marketing, and before I graduated, I asked my sister what she was doing, and she told me, and she was she was in e-commerce, and I loved what she was doing. She was really building out a brand. I believe it was Burns, and I just loved. She was building out the strategy for it and really working on the product side, and I just fell in love with it. And after that, I decided to go into that. And initially, I started doing market research, and then I wanted to get more and more into the creative development, and haven't stopped then.
There you go. Okay. So kind of like I go to school for a general subject like communications, like a business, like a whatever, but then I find like, oh, I can apply this in this area because of either an outside influence like a sister or something along those lines.
Yeah.
Okay. And then how do you get your specific job? Is it something where, again, hey, you applied just because you saw a listing on LinkedIn, Craigslist, something like that? Or was it, hey, I had somebody that was already working at the company and they were like, hey, you'd be perfect for this, send me your resume? Like, how do you kind of get your job?
It can be either way. LinkedIn, Indeed. It could be somebody that also works for the company. It could also be actually, yeah, that's basically it. I've also had, people that I've worked with in the past, and I've just reached out and said, hey, is there any opportunities? So even if a job is not posted,
Right.
I reached out and just said, I feel like I can bring this and this value. Is this anything that you're needing?
Okay. So almost like, hey, if you're not asking, if you're not seeing what's out there, then you might not know, or somebody might not realize, oh, wait, we do have a need there. Heather would fill this need perfectly. Yeah, we do have a job actually, now that I think about it.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Um, Part of the podcast that I think is kind of the most important part. I mean, I think every part of my podcast is important, but um, I something that I find the most interesting is what a person's average day to day looks like. So I always kind of use an example of like, we know what most people do in theory. Like if somebody says I'm a zookeeper, I'm a this or I'm a that, we have an idea of what that person does in our head. But when it comes down to like, okay, write out the tasks they do or write out what their daily schedule would be, I have no idea. I'm out here, I have no clue. And so do you have like a traditional like daily schedule? Is every day kind of be different, or like, what does your average day to day look like if you can kind of wrap it up and put a bow on it, I guess?
Um, so as a full-time employee with Net Documents, it's a ton of meetings.
Okay.
And a ton of meetings.
Okay. Is that meetings in person right now or over like Zoom
Everything
or?
for yeah, everything is like Microsoft Teams.
Okay. Gotcha.
Um, which can be challenging at times just because you really do have to get your work done. And when I say work, I do have to do the strategy. I have to do the marketing strategy for the public sector. And within the public sector, I have federal government. I have to do the strategy for state, local government. I also have to look at the strategy for higher ed. I have to do the media buy. I have to maintain the budget.
So like not that much stuff. Come on.
No,
Like
no,
seems
no.
like you got a pretty empty plate to me. like, geez Louise, that's already enough. That's already more things than I complete in an average day. That's it right there. Yeah.
Yeah, and I still have to do the lead nurturing, set up the workflows for that, work with my BDRs, write the cadences for them, meet with my sales team, my AEs. So we have the BDRs, the AEs.
And what are those two terms? Sorry, just so we all know, because as I was researching and like doing my little minimal research, I kind of realized there's a lot of terms that I do not know what they mean. I don't know if it's like just because I'm not in the field or in the business side of that, but like a BDR, I think is what you said, an AE. I'm
Yeah,
guessing AE is account executive, but I'm not positive. And then I have no idea what BDR is.
BDR is business development rep.
Okay.
Other companies may call them inside sales rep.
Oh, okay.
And then the AE, yes, is account exec.
Okay.
So the BDRs are usually the ones who book the meetings for the AEs.
Okay. So this is like also this is another thing that I'm like a little worried to ask right now. This is like your entire day, or this is like, hey, this is what I do until like 10 a.m. and then from here to here I'm dealing with more, or is this like I don't even know because now I'm nervous till there's like a million things you do and then you're about to be like, yeah, that's just one morning and then here we go.
Everything that I'm talking about is usually what I do all day because it's never something that it's you set it and forget about it.
Okay. So it's like a continuous flow of work that's just kind of coming at you as it comes and you got to kind of deal with it as it gets to your desk or to you.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. There are some things like once I write a cadence for the BDRs for like let's just say a trade show. Usually I can set it and forget about it, but the BDRs may have questions. Or they find, unfortunately, sometimes I'm not perfect. There may be typos and I have to go in and fix it.
Oh, gee, yeah. Don't even get me started on not perfect things over here.
Right. And I do appreciate it from my BDRs. They do give me some feedback and I really do appreciate it because I can go back in and adjust some things. So they've caught some great things. And so I make adjustments. Right now we're working on some new workflows though in lead nurturing in Marketo that only our ops person can do. So I've set up the framework, I've set up the emails, but she has to be able to set it up on their end.
Okay.
I do a lot of like list building, making sure my AEs have what they need for trade shows.
Okay.
It's a lot of work, but it's something that I
Yeah.
enjoy.
So one of the things that I, for some reason, keep forgetting to ask people, but that I also think is a huge important, and I think this is going to be a huge kind of, maybe with you, like a huge deal or a perk or benefit potentially is, or maybe negative, is what is your like work life balance? So like when you're done with your day, for example, or done with the office and you go home, is it phones off, I'm done, it's me time, or is it I'm at work from when I'm up until I go to sleep?
I have a hard time shutting off my brain,
Yeah.
but I have an amazing boss that, because again, like I've been a contractor for the last like 5, 6 years. So when I decided to go back into permanent full time work, my boss was very adamant about when 4 or 5 o'clock comes that I really do shut off. And I'm very fortunate that she really means it. And so she's 2 hours behind me.
Okay.
And I have people in North Carolina, we have people all over the place. But I really will say that when 5 o'clock comes, it pretty much stays quiet for me. And so some days I do work till 7 o'clock,
Sure.
but that's my choice.
Okay, so it's not something that they're expecting you to do or like or is required of you. It's a no, I'd rather do this so that I have an easier day tomorrow, or I'm just getting it alleviates the stress in my own brain of like, hey, this, oh God, this is happening. I can just rather get it done and move on.
That's my choice. Yes, it's something that I can't turn off my brain. I'm like, this is. It's almost like if you're working on a puzzle or something. It's like you just don't want to leave it.
Exactly. Like, yeah, it's right. It's there. I might as well just do it. Like, I'm not doing anything right now. Whereas, hey, later I might be doing something when this needs. So just knock it out.
Yeah, exactly. And so, but my boss has said, Heather, like she'll ping me and I'll see it on my phone. And she was like, you don't need to respond. And I'm like, I get it. I know I don't need to respond because we have Slack. And she's like, you don't need to respond. I'm just putting it there for you tomorrow.
Gotcha. It's like I don't need to respond for like her needs, but for my needs, I kind of do need to respond because this will help me
Yeah,
out.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Okay. Gotcha. That makes sense. Um, is there, are you a salary, hourly? Like you said, you usually you work contract or you are contract. Sorry, I kind of missed that one there if it slid under, but
Net documents, I'm salary.
okay.
And in the past, it's been between hourly and salary. It kind of depends on the job.
Gotcha. Is there any like, so I mean, salary, benefits, all that jazz, but is there any like perks that we may not see? Like, I mean, obviously, like, we know benefits and stuff like that, but is there like, I don't know, a cool event you get to go to or cool things you get to do or like something that we may not know about, just as the outside perspective?
So I was on we have this thing called Austin Digital Jobs on Facebook.
Okay.
And people don't realize this as a contractor. There's most contractors can get benefits.
Okay.
And so when you're going to be a contractor, a lot of these recruiting like agencies, they give you benefits.
Okay.
So don't ever be like, oh, I can't be a contractor because they don't give you benefits. That's not the case. A lot of these firms do give you benefits,
Okay.
and
That's
they
good
give
to
you
know.
benefits usually day one.
All right.
Um, for me, again, like with the documents, I'm a full-time employee. But like with, uh, for instance, when I worked for Google, I worked for Acland. I got benefits day one. I got a 401k,
Oh, wow.
and they matched me like 10%.
Oh, wow.
Um, there are a lot of benefits
Okay.
in both sides. I will say being salary, I like being salary because if I had a doctor's appointment,
Sure.
I don't have to make up those hours.
Yeah, it doesn't cut into like your budget, what you have figured out for like a budget or something like that. It's not like, oh, now this is like, dip in that.
Yeah, and like Christmas time or Thanksgiving, it's a thing. When I am hourly, it's like, oh, well, Thanksgiving comes, Christmas comes. I lose those hours, and a lot of time when you're a contractor, you can't make up those hours.
Gotcha.
And so there are perks and there's downfalls.
Of course.
And a lot of times when you're a contractor too, you can't work overtime.
Yeah. Okay. So you don't even have the benefit of like, oh, I can make those up because there's no ability to. Oh,
Yeah.
that kind of stinks. Okay.
Yeah. So
Uh,
you can work 40 hours, but you can't go over 40 hours.
okay, gotcha.
Or if like with Google, you could not work if there was Thanksgiving, you could not make up that 8 hours.
Okay.
Even though you were not going over 40 hours, you could not make up that hour.
There's not right because you'd have in like one day you'd have go over or end up. Gotcha.
Yeah. So it's very interesting. So when people ask me like, do you like being like hourly versus salary? I would pick salary. Do I work more hours being salary? Yes.
Probably, yeah.
But, and that's another thing. I like being hourly in a sense that when you're contracting, because I don't work more than 40 hours.
Yeah.
But then you lose money when it comes to holidays.
So it would seem that if you kind of got to know yourself in that situation and knowing what we've kind of discussed is like, yeah, the salary seems like it would better fit you only because it's like, well, I'm gonna work anyways, even if so it's like, well, if I'm not on the clock and I'm still gonna work, then I might as well figure out a way to get paid for it or get compensated for it. Totally makes sense.
Can I say this? If you love what you do and you're passionate about it, the time just kind of flies by.
Agreed. I've noticed that with podcasting is like at certain points of because I have like a little clock here just so I can kind of keep like a little bit of timing and pace. But like you'll look down and be like, wait, we've already been going for that long. Oh man, okay. This is going quick. Like this goes a lot quicker than you expect sometimes. And then at other times when you're like editing, it's the slowest thing in the world. So I
Right?
get it. Yeah. It depends what aspect of the job it is, sure. Um, is there a pay range for your position? If you don't want to discuss, we can totally skip past it or move on. But is there like a pay range that people can expect, or is it like based on experience, based on
Yeah. So if we're talking hourly, I prefer between 62 to like anything 62 and above. But my current salary right now is 120.
oh wow, okay.
And I do get like 401k match. I get the benefits. I have talked to other companies, and they were offering me like 100,000. And I'm actually okay with taking a little bit of pay cut
Right.
because
If
if
it's a
I'm
better
really
fit.
passionate about the
Mhm.
company, I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
To be able to help grow another company, I think that means more to me sometimes.
It's like that build fostering the building, the like I get that. I get yeah. That's kind of how I feel with the bot. Like, that's starting from nothing and seeing what you can grow.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing for me the most is having that home. I used to always say I want a family. I had two companies that I felt like I had a family. Cox Communications.
Really. They have not been my I mean, I don't want to disparage, but I have not had I wouldn't consider them family on my end. But hey, what are you gonna do?
I worked for them when I was in my 20s and back in Vegas. And the I still talk to a ton of people there. And I feel like not I don't just feel like they developed me. I learned, I grew. Um That was one of the best jobs I had in my entire life. And I really had a good support system and one of the best bosses I ever had.
that can mean more than the income sometimes, is the environment and the people. Like, I would take one of my first jobs. I had a great feel like family environment. And it's like, man, I would take a pay cut just to get the family environment back sometimes, or that vibe back.
I was actually talking to somebody who worked at Cox with me, and he said I would go back to Cox in a heartbeat. And because we had such a good, close team. And unfortunately, they did a reorg. And so that's where we kind of,
Went separate ways.
yeah. And I'm actually going back to Vegas in like a week and so. And I'm going to actually meet up with my old boss.
Oh, that's cool. That'd be fun.
Yeah. But Cox was one of the jobs that I definitely have loved and has meant the world to me. And another company was Green Revolution Cooling, where I felt like I made a huge impact and really felt like we had a family. But now I've realized that family does not exist in companies.
No, it's more like the right timing, like everything. Because as you were saying, like, when you're like, oh, the guy was like, I'd go back to Cox and Harvey. It's like, yeah, but is it going to be what you remember? Is it going to be the same if the same people aren't there, if the same environment's not there? So.
So I look for the home. I
Mhm.
want the long-term home.
Okay.
But the family, I read this article one time that said, will your family lay you off? Will your
Mm.
family do
Mm.
budget cuts? Will your family, and it's
Yeah.
something that kind of resonated with me. But do we want a home? Do we
Hmm.
want a long-term place? And
Yeah,
the thing is, yes,
of course. Stability.
you got it.
Of
And so
course.
that's why I say home versus
Hmm.
family now.
Gotcha. That makes sense. I like that framing better of it.
Well, like my boss at Cox, she didn't have a say in whether I stayed or go. It came from higher up. And so it wasn't the family then, right?
right. Yeah, because then you realize at the end of the day it's business. Like there is no family. It is business at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Um, with your current situation, job, is there, like, what's the hierarchy structure, I guess? Like, do you have you were kind of saying you check in with the AEs, you check, so are these teams, like, would they be considered under you, above? Like, I don't know kind of how that structure would fit.
The funny thing is, they always, when I started there, they said job titles don't mean anything, which is funny because my boss and I have the same job title.
So maybe they don't mean anything. Yeah, that doesn't show much delineation there.
But it's BS because um, our GM is basically in charge of all the sales team. He cusses like a sailor. And I slipped a cuss word.
Uh-oh.
And my boss, like the next day, reprimanded me and said, you don't do that in front of the GM.
Oh no.
And I was kind of stunned because I feel like you kind of learn from the people that you're around.
They set the tone. They usually, the above sets the tone, and then we follow the tone.
So the next week, I told the GM, I said, I'm so sorry for thing. And he said, who the F said you can't cuss?
Yeah.
Who told you that? And I couldn't say my boss.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want to throw her under the bus. But it just kind of shows how that whole saying, we don't do job titles, is complete BS, because they do.
Yes.
The guy is really relaxed, so
Yeah.
my boss obviously is not.
Yeah.
If you can't, this is my saying, is if you can't be yourself, and that's one thing I will say about my GM, he can always be himself, and that's something I respect.
Yeah.
So I never try and put on a facade. I don't kiss butt.
I get that. I've said on multiple ones, like, I can only be myself. I don't know how to be anybody else at this point in my life. And if they don't like it, well, I'm sorry, guys. This is the only version of me you got.
We spend more time at work. I'm not trying to put on a Barbie doll facade.
Well, and then my thing is always like, I now have to keep this up. Like I am too lazy to do that. I am way too lazy to keep up some
You're
fake
not lazy.
for that. For facade, for all that. I can't. It would be something where I'd be like, I have to act again today. Like, oh no, I just can only be me. That's it.
That's the thing is acting.
Yeah, can't do it.
And that's the thing that's most exhausting.
Yeah.
That's it. The acting side. So I when you can work with people that you don't have to act
Hmm.
and be yourself, then I feel like then you're the best.
I think so too.
The question is that you feel safe.
Yeah, that and you're comfortable, but you're not worried about, what other people are going to say, think, just be yourself. And if that somebody doesn't like you, move on, whatever. Um, I have some questions that I kind of came up with that I think are job specific to your job. We'll see. You said earlier that you're now working with the public sector. What would be the biggest benefit to working with the public sector? And what's the biggest challenge when working with the public sector?
Well, when I said public sector, do you even know what that means?
Well, so I'm assuming it's public as in like government, the state and local schools, stuff like that, and then private's like a private business, like a restaurant, a whatever, Target, whatever.
You're very smart.
Well, thank you. I'm not. I just am good at guessing.
No, you're really smart actually. No, that you're right on. So I'm focused on the federal, state, local government, higher ed, nonprofit. The biggest
Okay.
challenges for my job is federal, state, and local. They don't give a crap about marketing. If they're interested in something, they will put an RFP out, which is a request for proposal,
Okay.
and they'll put it out on their website,
Okay.
whether it's on sam.gov
Gotcha.
or on their own state website. And then you have to pay attention. You submit your RFP, and then if they're interested, they'll follow up.
Is that like? I mean, maybe I'm off on this. Would that be like we want a new park? And then you guys like put a proposal for a park? Is that what we're talking about? Or is there a better example?
Yeah, I mean, so like net documents, we do document management. So if they want a new electronic uh, document management system,
Gotcha.
um,
We want to go paperless, blah, 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 blah.
we got it.
Okay. 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 Now I'm following. I'm following.
We
This is
got
why
it.
we do this podcast, so I can learn these things. I'm
No,
following.
you're so smart.
All right.
No, seriously, you catch on really quickly. The challenge is nobody realizes it. So I'm spending money on money and money on things that I don't feel like we should be spending money.
Gotcha.
Higher ed, we do get traction because I do private and public.
Okay.
So I have seen traction on that. Federal, I
It feels like there might be a lot of red tape and like laws and silly laws and things you have to get around where it's like, why is this even written into the, it's like, well, one time back 20 years ago something happened, so now we had to write this little amendment to this law, and now you're like, what? That seems like it could be an issue.
that's an issue. There's issues with some laziness on some things. There's a bigger buyer committee.
Gotcha.
When you're dealing with state, local, federal government, there's a bigger buyer committee.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's not as just simple as you walking into Bed Bath and Beyond and wanting to buy a comforter.
Yeah. It would be like if I wanted to go to Bed Bath and Beyond, buy a comforter, but I had to ask 15 store employees and get every single one of their approvals to buy the comforter.
Yeah. And then right now, my current challenge is we don't have the right content to nurture people. So once I get them in the funnel, I don't know if you know much about marketing, but we have the top of the funnel. So once I bring people in, so at the top, they just sit there because I don't have a way to move them down.
Okay.
So imagine like a funnel.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I have them here. I don't have enough education materials to move them down.
Gotcha. To advance the gotcha. Okay.
And my job is to move them, but I need things to move them down.
Gotcha. When I was when I was looking and looking a little bit on your LinkedIn and stuff, there's a lot of new what I would call nuance terms. I think some people would say buzzwords. I don't necessarily like that term. But nuance terms of like I don't know what this means, and I bet you there's more than one definition to it, or like depending upon the situation, this is how we would use X, Y, or Z. Um, how do you, I guess, when you're talking to these committees or something like that, how do you provide value to somebody who might not understand all these nuanced terms?
Can you give me an example?
Maybe this isn't the right question, but I feel like there's terms and stuff that people, when looking through marketing of like different strategies, different acronyms, different abbreviations that people don't know. And they're like, I just feel like I'm lost in a sea of words that you're telling me, but I don't know exactly what this is going to do to like help provide me with either a better system, a faster system, a save me money.
So that's my job, is to be able to speak to their language. So with like net documents, uh, my job is to understand my ideal customer profile.
Okay.
What is who's my target audience? What is their pain points? What is their challenges? Um, net documents was known and built by lawyers and was made for lawyers, and public sector is completely different. So then I had to start really diving in and understanding it's not the same thing anymore.
Okay.
So really working with like my AEs and understanding, how did you sell this? Same thing with like Google or content serve, is what one pain point is for one company is not the same pain point for another. So like MQL is the same thing across the board. It's a marketing qualified lead. SQL is a sales qualified lead. But when I'm looking at developing a strategy, the first thing I always do is, who's my ideal customer profile? And what is the lingo? What is that acronym that you just mentioned that's going to resonate with that persona? Because if I don't know who my audience is, I'm going to fail.
Right. Cause you're just kind of throwing out a generic, presentation or proposal to somebody instead of like, tailoring it to them.
Exactly. It's like Tom's or Nike, and you're not understanding what that brand means, or whether it's for basketball or soccer, or what you can do for it, right?
You're just going, here's my presentation on shoes, as opposed to like, here's my presentation on, we're talking basketball. So we're going basketball shoes versus football cleats versus soccer cleats versus, gotcha.
Exactly.
Okay.
You
Okay.
can
I'm
have
picking up.
evergreen content, which
Hmm.
is the overall brand, but if you're going to tailor it for that industry, for that job title, I have to understand. And that's something, it's I have to understand it. So there is different acronyms, and then you really have to. It's almost diving. It's very much like psychology, right? Like, and that's where kind of communications part of my degree comes in.
Learning to talk to the person to like, yeah, feel them out. Okay. What do you need? What are your wants? What are your needs? What do you, gotcha.
Wants, needs, uh, who, how, right?
Why? Yeah. If I, because if you figure
Exactly.
out the why, then you can, okay, that's why you're doing, now we can attack the problem from that. Got it.
Yep.
Okay, that makes sense. We kind of touched on this earlier, but I guess my final kind of job specific question that I have here in this realm is, what is the difference between B2B and B2C? Not necessarily just in like definition. I understand like that second B and the other C is probably something different, but like what would be, the main difference between the two from a work perspective, I guess.
I love this question. So I initially started off in B2C, and I never thought I would go into B2B. I thought B2B was boring. Um, and the reason why I love this question is because There's a few differences, but there's very few differences.
Okay. I would have assumed that it was completely different, like the opposite.
Now, when you do it right and when you look at it in the right way, B2C, you're really, it's like going back to Nike to you. You're an individual. I'm selling a shoe to you.
Yep.
Imagine me selling Nike to about 10 other people in an organization.
Okay.
The thing that this is the thing, people think you can't be emotional, you can't be engaging, you can't be funny because it's B2B.
Hmm. It's got to be like suit tie, buttoned up. Okay. No.
That's not true. And that's initially what I thought as well when I went from B2C to B2B. And I realized that's not the case. And the difference between B2C and B2B is there is more influencers. I have to talk to more people in B2B.
Okay.
So instead of just talking to you, I have to talk to maybe 5 or 10 people.
Right. Instead of convincing the individual, you're convincing the committee or the team.
Exactly.
Okay.
But I can still be funny. I can still
Gotcha.
be engaging because the people I'm talking to are not robots.
Right. They have personalities too. Yeah. Yeah, of course.
I might have to simplify some things to one part. I might have to be a little bit more sophisticated on another side. But at the end of the day, they're all humans.
Yeah.
And it makes my job even more exciting because the fact that I can express my creativity even more so makes it even better.
Yeah, that's got to be that's one of the like a perk thing that we were kind of mentioning earlier of like, hey, that's one of the perks that you might not, necessarily see is that, oh, I get to be creative at work. It's not just a like monotonous dun, 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 dun kind of thing.
Exactly. And when people quit thinking B2C and B2B, I think the advantage of me starting off in B2C has made me a better B2B marketer
Okay.
because I have seen the way people react to B2C and I know that there are humans.
Hmm. So you can use those some same strategies plus the B2B strategies.
Yes, everybody's human. And when you quit treating it like everybody's like a robot,
It's almost like seeing the individual versus seeing the corporation. Like, like, yes, it is a team, and yes, you are representing the corporation, but you're still an individual, still going to find things funny. You're still going to find things annoying, whatever.
yes.
Um, Something I've been trying to do and like a little new segment. I have no idea if this is going to play here or not.
Are you going to test it on me?
I haven't. I've tested it on a few people, but some jobs it just works better for because there's more public interaction, and some jobs it just doesn't really work for because somebody's like, "There's nothing you can really do for me." But how could I be better too? So, as like an individual, just out here in the world, is there anything I can do to be better to you, the marketer, the marketing genius? Like, what can I do to make your job easier, or is there anything?
Are you asking like what you can do for me or
What I could, so if it's like, hey, you could, I had one where somebody said you could fill out questionnaires and like we actually read them and pay attention to them. And it's like, oh, okay, that's something I didn't realize. Or when I had a mailman on, I asked him about that and he said, the people that leave out waters or some stuff like that, that's cool. Or if you just like pick up your mail so we don't have to deal with a full mailbox, like that's cool too. And so maybe something like that. Again, if you're like, hey, there's not really much because I'm dealing with other kind of things, or you wouldn't really have that impact on me, I totally understand because it's not necessarily going to play for everybody, but it's something where I try to want to promote more positivity and more like helping each other as opposed to like negativity and tearing each other down.
I would love that right there. The positivity.
Okay.
I was talking to a friend of mine and he said, well, Heather, this is marketing. And he said, you chose a career where everybody's just cutthroat and this is just what it is. And I broke down and I started crying and I said to him, I can't believe that people are cold hearted,
Yeah.
no feelings. And I just said, I am not this person.
Right.
And I said, I love what I do. I'm good at what I do. I've increased numbers over and over again. And I just said, if it means that I have to work with cold hearted people, then I don't know if I want to keep doing this. And if that's what you're telling me is that managers above me are going to be this way, I said, I don't want to keep doing this.
No, it's gonna be banging your head on a wall for the rest of your life, like, or for the rest of the time you're working at this place. And I mean, the other thing too, I have tough times with generalizations a lot, where people are like, everyone in this career is like this, or and it's like, really, everyone? There's not one or two. I'm always like, eh. But most of the time, when you dig down deep and you're like, so everyone, like, you're like, oh, well, actually, I had one or two bad experiences with people. And so now it's everyone. And it's like, okay, so it's not everyone, it's a couple. But
Well, the guy I was talking to actually is a guy that works for the state unemployment.
oh, okay.
But one, it made me realize one is I'm going to be somebody who manages somebody because I know what it's like. And I never want somebody to feel the way that I've felt or have interviewed with somebody that, but I have realized there are cutthroat people in this world in marketing.
Oh, of course.
People get intimidated if you're better than them. I'm not one, you know that saying, you hire people who are better than you, smarter than you. I don't get it. Like I personally am like, I encourage that. I'm working with somebody right now who's way smarter than me.
Yeah, I do every day. It's my producer.
And right, I mean,
Yeah.
this guy is. I think I'm more creative than him, but he's way better with the numbers.
Gotcha.
And he and I balance each other out.
Nice.
And I love working with him, but there's none of that like cutthroat. Like work well together and
You don't feel like you have to like look over your shoulder, be like, what is he doing over there? What's going on? Yeah.
there's none of that. And I just wish more and more people could be that way. And if people just stop being so insecure with themselves.
That would be a big start.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be a big start.
And so when you ask me like what would I want,
Mhm.
I guess I would hate to sound cliche, but just we all just get along.
Exactly. Exactly. And I mean, that is literally what most people end up saying. It's like, just be nice. It's really easy. Just don't be mean to people. And you know what? My thing is like, hey, I get that people have bad days. You're allowed to have bad days. If you're having a bad day, just avoid people then. Just say, hey, you know what? I'm gonna remove myself from this day and you guys go about doing your thing and I'll join you when I'm in a better mood.
I had one guy I worked with, he bit my head off and I thought it was something I did. And the next day I went up to him and he said to me, Heather, you didn't do anything. I was just having a bad day. And so if we quit in like internalizing it, maybe we could just live our lives.
Yeah. But then I also am like, I have my request for the other person. It's like, hey, can't you just leave your stuff at the door? We're all here at work. Like, just drop your bag at the door and pick it up on your way out. Like, I don't get
Right?
that one.
No, seriously,
Okay,
that's
whatever.
a really good point.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then
Yeah.
maybe I wouldn't have to go home and cry myself to
Exactly.
sleep.
Yeah. Man, oh man. Well, the last bit of the podcast that I have here is one of the reasons we started this is, and something we always try and do, is give our guests some time to either promote like a side hustle that they're doing, or promote kind of how we were talking about positivity. If there's something you just want the listeners to know or to think about, or something to leave them with, here is your time.
I think that we just did that, right?
I would
Just
agree. Yeah. I was gonna say it kind of flowed in. It was like a perfect kind of flow into it, but I think that's a great thing to leave people with is like just kind of try to be more positive. I'm not gonna say I don't want to, be positive, but try, try and be more positive. That just goes a long way. It helps people put the just helps everyone in the long run.
Be you and just, yeah, it's okay to have a bad day, own it, and try not to take it out on people. And if you do, just say I'm sorry.
Yeah, try not to have 2 bad days in a row. It's the best you can do.
Seriously.
Yeah. But well, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to do this for me. I really appreciate it.
No, this is great.
Well, that's it for another episode of the Jobology podcast. Thank you, Heather, for taking the time out of your day to do that for me. Before I let you guys go, a couple quick reminders. Please make sure that you like, subscribe, and follow at Jobology Podcast on all major social media platforms. And if you're on YouTube, go down below, type a comment on any job you would like to see on an upcoming episode. Like we say to end every episode, make good choices.